All right. So we'll make another video. Trying to replicate variable resistance in a gym setting, very difficult. Just because the weight, whatever weight you move, whether it's on a machine or whether it's a dumbbell or a free weight, right? Or a barbell, whatever it is, it's still going to be static weight moving. So as you're moving, the weight against gravity is not changing. That's the key. That's why we get way better results when we have a dynamic weight, when the weight changes as you move. So the closest thing I could think to trying to replicate this is you have two options. You could try, number one, to progressively overload the strongest position only. So what that looks like is you're getting under the weight nearly at extension. So there's safety mechanisms in place. You're adjusting it so the bench is lower. You're going to be almost at extension and you're going to lift it just enough. And you shouldn't be able to hold it longer than 30 seconds in your strongest position. So if you can hold it longer than 30 seconds, it's too light. You need to add weight because you need to overload the strongest position. Okay. So I don't advise doing this, especially on your own, especially if you're new and you don't have like weightlifting or a background or like experience in the gym. Definitely don't do this alone. And definitely find someone who's going to help you and spot you. Or better yet, just find a BioDensity center or an OsteoStrong and train with someone who has an X3 system. That's the safest way to do this because the technology is available. So, but in any case, if you were going to try to replicate this technology by doing it yourself in the gym, it would probably be where you would overload the strongest position. So that could be on a leg press, right? I mean, it's just dangerous, right? I've tried this before, and being 15 years of a conditioned athlete who was trained professionally, for years, a decade or more of like professional personal training, and I still didn't feel comfortable doing it, even though I was practicing it, right? You gotta have safety mechanisms in place. I had spotters, I had people that knew what they were doing who were watching out for my best interest, and I still got hurt. So doing this type of stuff, there's a lot of science that goes into this, and it's not just to be replicated like do it yourself, like at home. I was talking to one guy after I showed him the X3 bar, and he's talking about like a broomstick and how you can go buy bands at Walmart and hook them to a broomstick and push it away. And I thought, I said, no, don't do that. Don't do that because you'll hurt yourself. Don't, because what you find is you're 5 times stronger in one position than another. So when you're biomechanically optimized at extension, you can hold about 5 times the amount of force that you can at the bottom of the position. Okay, so that bench press that you're picking up nearly at extension and holding for less than 30 seconds is the overload of the strongest position. But again, as soon as it starts to push your arms back, you have to have safety mechanisms so it offloads and you don't take the weight, because if that dropped on you, you would die. So don't risk it and just do something safe like osteogenic loading. Okay. The other way, what we're talking about is variable resistance. So the weight increasing as you move forward. So there's no way to really replicate that in the gym because you have to push about 4 or 5 times more out at extension than you do back here. So if you're going to move through one rep or one repetition, you can't change the weight as you're moving. So in that case, what I would advise if you don't have an X3 system is look at an X3 system. After that, though, if you're insistent to continue lifting weights, it would be more of a heavy set for less reps, because there's a lot of science behind this. So we're kind of doing both. We're doing high weight, high resistance, and high repetition. So it's not something you can really do with a weight, but the key would be to do high, but you just have to do more, right? You have to do both sides of it, which is high weight. With weight, you got to do low repetition because it's so heavy to move through the full range of motion. But I'd probably do like 5 reps, something you can do 5 reps for. and do maybe 3 sets of that. Okay. And then you got to move in to like what they would call a drop set. So now you're using less weight and you're focusing on the lengthened position. So you're going heavy for 3 sets. You're going lighter for anywhere from 12 to 20 reps. And it's lighter and you're focused on the lengthened position, but you have to do maybe 4 or 5 drop sets and fatigue in each position. So with the heavy set for 5, you would fatigue at the top and then you'd be done. And then with the next drop set, you would fatigue right out almost at extension, about 80% of the way to extension. And then you'd be done. And you'd be doing 12 reps or 15 or 20 reps in that position and fatigue it fully in that position. Then you do a third drop set, a little bit lighter weight, and you're using a lighter weight that's going to fatigue you in that maybe 40 to 50% range of motion. And then you would even do another drop set and use even lighter weight in the 10 to 30% range of motion. So that's the absolute most lengthened position, to where if you're working your pectorals, the pectorals most lengthened at here, at extension, or at flexion, right? Okay, and then you'd fatigue in that last little range of position. So it would be like a drop set so that you can fatigue, I would say like 5 drop sets, so you can fatigue in the strongest position, 80%, 60%, 40, 20, and 10. So you need to do sets for all that. I mean, that's why you can see, that's why I just say, just get an X3 and you'll be able to do all this in 1 set. And if you want to work the hypertrophy, we do that in 5 sets, 5 supersets. So it's quite a bit more volume, but let me know your thoughts, your comments. Let me know if you try this in the gym, if you go try it. Let me know how you feel the next day if you're super sore. I can imagine doing 8 to 10 sets even of a movement with static weight. It's going to put some pressure on your joints. That's the problem with weightlifting, is it loads your joints first and your muscles secondary. And that's why you end up being so sore. You shouldn't be sore, really. I mean, maybe a little bit. The worst soreness we hear about is like a scale of 3 to 4 on a scale of 10. It's like 3 to 4 the next day only. If it lasts more than a couple days, maybe 1 or 2 days, but if it's more than a 3 or 4, like if you have trouble walking or you have trouble doing any daily activities, if you have trouble playing sports after a strength training session, you got to look at what you're doing, because that's doing more damage than it is good. And the more damage you do, the less growth you have. So our goal here is to fatigue the muscle so completely, absolutely exhaust the muscle so completely that it triggers the body to grow more muscle, but it doesn't do any damage to the tissue. Okay, so it's not tearing the tissue. It's just providing a stimulus that fatigues all the fuel of the muscle and sends a signal to your central nervous system that there's a deficit of muscle and we need to grow more. So that's where we bring it to absolute fatigue. So that's what we're talking about. If you wanted to try to replicate this technology in the gym and kind of do it yourself, I don't advise it, just because the degree of injury goes up, especially if you're someone who is untrained, doesn't have a background of, performance training or weightlifting or powerlifting. If you're deconditioned, if you're alone, if you don't have a trainer, all those factors come into place. So find a BioDensity center, find an X3 bar, and get plugged into it. And I'll talk to you soon.